Imagine, it's the year 2020. It is the very first day of September. The warm summer sun still keeps the harsh autumn winds at bay. You have just finished editing calculated members in all three user dimensions, not minding the kids fighting in the background or the one fully functioning Xbox controller. You add a new colleague to the calculated members representing the teams in your organization. What if I told you on that warm Tuesday afternoon, you had another option? This is us, Zana and Robert, and we will show you the ins and outs of powering up your reports with the additional data import. I'm with eazyBI for 2.5 years in customer support. I have never shied away from the additional data import, but now I have even more reason to advocate for it.
Hi, I'm Zana from eazyBI support as well. I could talk about eazyBIs for hours. There are so many ways you can read data and get answers on business questions, but today I will try to keep it short and sweet and give you key how to advance the report.
First, I will introduce you to the topic, its background, and the benefits. Then, Zana will share use cases on building custom hierarchies, including the additional data import, and create a custom hierarchy from there. Later, I will add on top of that with 2 other use cases. So before we dive into specifics, let us take a step back and clarify why anyone would want a custom hierarchy in a dimension, what the additional data import has to do with it, and what's in it for you. eazyBI provides an option to define calculated members. The most frequent use is defining them in measures, but this option is not limited to measures only. You can create them in other dimensions as well. Grouping and aggregating its members. This is useful when Jira and eazyBI don't provide desired grouping out of the box. A good example is the calculated members in user dimensions, for instance, the assignee dimension, when the Jira user groups don't reflect the particular team structure in your organization. And in such case, you can define calculated members and pinpoint the specific members you want to add to that group. And then you can observe the group efforts and, if necessary, see each user separately. Another example where, on the contrary, grouping specific members is counterintuitive because new members are added periodically. Such an example is the sprint dimension, where every now and then new sprints are created. Grouping them by pointing to specific members can get old really fast. In such cases, you can aggregate members in by some naming convention, the member name or a property. So far, everything looks fine. That is until you have way too many of these, or have to use this approach in more than one eazyBI account. But the most decisive factor, as Dinah already mentioned in her presentation, the report performance can suffer when these are abused. This is the part where custom hierarchies come in. A dimension hierarchy may seem self-explanatory, but nevertheless, the default time dimension hierarchy is a great example, where the day level is at the very bottom of the hierarchy. It belongs to a single month, quarter, year member, and all the way up to the all member. Many other dimensions have hierarchies, from the straightforward status category hierarchy to the reasonably complex fixed version hierarchies. They make the reporting easier, allowing you to adjust the report to the needed level of detail. With the option of custom hierarchies, Reports can be tailored to your needs. But for a long time, custom hierarchies have been available only for the issue and time dimensions, with varying difficulties in creating them. But since some of the last updates, eazyBI handles custom hierarchies in user dimensions, assignee, reporter, and logged by, and also the project and sprint dimensions. We are looking further into expanding this list in the future. Okay, the option is there. Naturally, a question arises. How can one define these custom hierarchies in the particular dimension? With dimension member properties. By default, only the project dimension has a property you can use to build a custom hierarchy. It's the project lead. The user and sprint members don't. That leads us to the additional data import. As the name implies, you can import additional data into the data you already have in the Jira issues queue. But what is the additional data? And the existing one? The extra data you can add to the Jira issues queue are dimension member properties and measures. The existing data are the dimensions and their members to which you tie the additional data. So it's not a way to add new dimensions or dimension members. To recap, with custom hierarchies, you gain faster reports, less busy work in updating calculated members, and better organization of your data.
So enough why, let's see how. We will present you several use cases, gradually adding the complexity. So hopefully you will master all the wonderful possibilities and benefits Robert just mentioned by the last use case. All the use cases are based on the Jira data model, but you can use those approaches also on other data. So we'll start with simple and effective tool, how to add custom hierarchy. More certainly, you have encountered those hierarchies in time, project issues, and so on. And I want to emphasize that the hierarchy has a tree-like structure. So it means that one leaf could be attached only to one branch at a time and not two. So also the member of a dimension could be in one subgroup in the hierarchy, not several. Here's another analogy you may use to think of hierarchy. For example, to find your favorite pants in the pile of clothing might take some effort, checking every piece of clothing. On the other hand, in a wardrobe, you can see at a glance whether you have any clean pants at all in the shelf, and then it's much easier to find your favorite pants. So custom hierarchies help to organize things and find them faster. Keep that in mind. So let's build first custom hierarchy. And you can try this use case without any preparation. Group projects by project lead. So does this look familiar? A calculated member for each group to aggregate handpicked members or members matching a specific criteria. For example, to group projects by project lead, the property you already have in eazyBI. But there's much better way to do it. You may ask eazyBI to do it for you and add custom hierarchy. Then select project property, project lead. If you have project track app and project track data in eazyBI, you can use project track fields also to group projects. And here you go. eazyBI has created the project lead hierarchy in the project dimension you can use on your report. I also encourage you to use the same dimension on pages so you can use those groups for filtering data. And here is one flexible example how you can create only one calculated member. So any user who has logged in can find the projects they are assigned to as leaders. Okay, yeah, Here's the page filter, and it reads the current user name. Okay, you can add custom hierarchy if there is a property. But if there is not a property to organize data, what to do? So answer is simple. You can import data with additional data import. I will show you one use case, how to group reporter users by the country they are located. You can import country name as property to each person in reporter dimension, and then add custom hierarchy. So how to do it? First, prepare data. You may prepare them in file or get it from other system. Most importantly is to have at least 2 columns, one indicating the person and another the new property. Then add the data source to the eazyBI cube. In data mapping screen, first select the existing cube. Then in first column, select dimension to which you want to add the property. And in the second column, enter the property name. And when the data are imported, here you have a new option to add custom hierarchy also in the user dimensions. Let me give you a short demonstration. So I have data in file, locally stored, so I can upload the file. So we can also choose the existing data cube because those are additional data. In the first column, select dimension and level to which dimension you want to add property. Then mark that you would like to look those users in reported dimension by name because your data source contains names. And mark skip missing because some of the users might not be imported in this particular data cube. For the property column, select the same dimension and level. And then give a property a name. Now you are ready to import data. In the Analyze tab in the reported dimension, now there is a new option, Add Custom Hierarchy. And eazyBI will offer you a list or one property you have imported. Here you have. You can see countries. Under each country are users, and the metrics are aggregated by countries. eazyBI can read country names, so you can switch to static map chart. I will choose region for Europe because all my countries are in Europe. For my example, and then you can represent aggregated metrics, their values on this map chart. So with additional data, you can bring simple reported dimension to completely new level. Okay, you can import a text as a property and add new custom hierarchy. But there is more. You can import date as property too. This option speeds up the counting of, let's say, users with matching dates. I have added 2 more properties for each user. This is I have user, I know the location country, and I know 2 dates, the date when user started to work and the date when this person decided to leave. So I can put it in good use. So I have uploaded the file again. In this, the same data cube, I have selected the first column to the dimension I want to import properties. For the column containing date, eazyBI offers automatically to import this data to map it to time dimension. But it is useful when you want to import some metrics. In this case, we want to import date as property to reporter users. So we select reporter dimension. In the settings, we set property name. And we choose option also to create some counter metrics. So eazyBI will count how many rows have, how many users have this date filled in. We can do the same for our second date. Again, we select the reporter dimension because we want to import this as a property. And for property, we enter property name and agree that eazyBI will count for us how many users have filled in this date. Now we are ready to import data. After data import, we can check on what properties we have and what data we have for our reporter dimension. We have reporter country, reporter hire date, and reporter leave date. This is concatenation of dimension name and property name, and also two more metrics, employees hired and employees left. As you see, those metrics are already aggregated for all reporters, and the rest of properties is seen when you expand each of them. Okay, let's see how it works with time dimension. If I use time on this kind of report, I can filter data by some period, let's say year 2021. And eazyBI will show you only those users who are hired or have left the company in this year. I can use this information and show hired employees on a timeline. Let's switch places. Time will set on rows and select only employees hired. And I can put in good use also our property country. I will use country hierarchy and check how many users are hired in Latvia over time. So with two more properties, you can get another level of reporting and insight in your data. I will give next use case to Robert.
Thank you. Let us have a look at similar use cases with the sprint dimension. The two examples are straight from the support mailbox. And as Dinah already mentioned in Jira, depending on the board configuration, you can work on sprint from multiple boards or have a central board where the sprints are created, but work is done in team boards. And unfortunately, eazyBI has no notion of these configurations. And in the sprint dimension hierarchy puts them in the boards they were created. This can lead to situations where you can't use the sprint hierarchy boards and must aggregate sprints in calculated members. Or use the additional data import to add team name to every sprint. I will not go into detail on the data mapping and hierarchy creation in this example, as Zana already covered these basics. The one thing I want to highlight is the use of the sprint ID and the key column selected in the advanced options, as sprints tend to have a loose naming structure. And in the result, you can combine sprint results for each team, or view sprint outcomes for each team separately. The last example requires some more tinkering and getting your hands dirty. We will have a look at grouping sprints by program increments. It will include retrieving all sprint data from the Jira database. Yes, still showing some love to the server and data center. And extract the program increment name from the sprint name as a property. Additionally, we'll extract a numerical value from the sprint goal and import it as a measure. And you know the rest. So we will not horse around and let's get to it. So we start with the Jira data already imported, and we'll add the SQL database as the data source. Let's select the correct parameters for the connection. I will pre-fill mine. And first, let's test what we can get from the database. We'll retrieve the sprint ID, name, and goal. So these three columns represent the information we need, the sprint ID to map the data to the sprints, sprint dimension, sprint members, and here we see the sprint names, which have the program increment name in them. So we will try to extract that. And the sprint goal has some alphanumeric values, but we will try to get out the numeric side of it. So let's get back to the edit screen and update our SQL select. So I will not go into detail what this all means. You can maybe later check it out. And let's see what we got here. So as we see, the PI name column contains the property we're looking for each sprint. And the capacity column gets the numerical values out of the sprint goal. We can have a look at all the 50 rows we have here, and it seems all fine. Let's proceed to the data mapping. Let's select the correct cube and the sprint dimension, sprint level. And as in the previous example, we will select the key column and also the skip missing option. We will ignore the name and goal columns because they don't add anything to our data. But we will map the PI name column to the sprint dimension, sprint level as the PI property. And the capacity column as a measure. And let's start the import. We'll quiet time, and let's go to the Analyze tab. And let's have a look what we have. So let's expand the sprint dimension and the sprint level. And look for the additionally imported data. So the sprint PI as a property, here we have it, and the capacity measure. There it is. And we could compare them to also add the sprint goal to really make sure the values match. And how we got them out of the text field. So everything seems fine. And we could switch to a report. No, let's first create a hierarchy. That was the point of it, wasn't it? And there it is. As in previous examples, the properties are for the individual members and the measures are aggregated. So let's switch to a ready-made report. Where we can make use of the additional data. So what we have here, the sprint dimension in pages as well in rows, where the program increment is selected in pages and the individual sprints in rows. And we can compare the hours spent to the planned capacity. And for example, create a calculated measure that looks at how was the fulfillment of it. And maybe add some linear trend to see how it progressed over time, or over sprints in this case. And the report could look something like this. And that's that. Thank you. Zane?
Okay. In most cases, it might take several tries to get the perfect data model for the report you are looking. Even for us, it helps if you know what the end report is going to look like, which dimensions will be on rows, how you're going to filter data, what metrics are you going to use. So don't panic and keep trying to create something new. In this case, data model might take some iterations and consideration what works and what's not. So I have really sincere advice for you. Please test in a separate account before you put it on production, before you add additional data on production. As I mentioned, it may take several attempts, and it's really painful to clean up corrupted data model. It's not fun. So test first. So why you might want to do it? Just remind you, updated data in one place, not in all reports and dimensions or calculated members. In organized structure, you can find things faster, what you're looking for. And less custom calculations improve performance, simple as that. And this is how you power up your reports. If you have any questions, please ask them today here in questions and answers or in Slack channel, or you may contact us later in community or in support email. Thank you.